Hello and welcome to the Morning Skate Podcast. I am Matt Moody, joined by DJ Mitchell, here to talk about the Thursday, January 11th NHL Daily Fantasy Slate. DJ, how are you doing? How was your Tuesday night?
Yeah, Jason Dickinson. I mean, doesn't. I'm not even gonna get into it. Yeah, no, I mean, DFS wise, I was just not quite there. I played Vancouver 1, like I said, I planned on it, and I just didn't get there. Although, the chalk didn't smash, so I think I could have had a better chance. Like if you would have told me, Vancouver's gonna score as many goals as they did, was it 7 in the end or 6? I still would have done the same thing every time. And then betting wise, I had 5 of 7, but Jason Dickinson broke my entire heart. Like 5 of 7 is barely a profit, if anything, and 6 of 7 is everything I need and more, at least. Well, I guess not everything I need. 7 would have been better. But yeah, that was pretty shitty to watch. Darnell Nurse just slide away and Dickinson do snipe. But how was your night?
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. I literally wound up backdooring like the min cash line, but on a night where Matthews got completely frozen out of a 7-goal explosion from the Leafs, and watching a Zach Hyman hat trick literally disappear and turn into 2.6 fantasy points thanks to an overturned goaltender interference goal, an offsides challenge goal, and a missed empty netter. It's pretty, it was just one of the more tilting experiences. To hit the Gunther ceiling, Tomasino scores. I get the absolute nut run out for my chalk goalie. And I was the only guy in the $432 contest to have both Matthews and McDavid, because I thought that that was doable given the extreme values that were available on the slate. So I was really happy with how I played, that the results were quite tilting. But, at the end of the day, I made slightly more. Well, I guess technically I lost money because the qualifier netted up with 0. But, have some more cash than I did before, I guess, was the primary takeaway. But, yeah, no, it was a good night, all things considered. But certainly a very frustrating one as well, which, as I always say, it's easier to tune in or to tune out entirely when you're just dead than it is to be hanging around the cash line. That's always a more grueling sweat than just the nope, close the laptop, we're done here. Which thankfully I haven't had in, a few days now since the start of the new year. So hoping to keep that going here on Thursday.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe you have a better threshold for that than me. I feel like as soon as Dickinson scored, I was I completely obliterated. The night was a complete disaster. And 5 of 7 is really not that bad. You all considered. I was ready to throw my phone into Niagara Falls, and I'm just I feel and I text you probably every single night when something happens. I feel like I am just so quick to jump. Do you have any advice for people like me? When you're playing DFS or you're gambling, how do you keep yourself from going over the edge too soon?
Well, I mean, I'm not coming at this from a position of strength, because last night was easily last night was the most tilt that I have been. Now, part of that was, I didn't know Gunther was going to have a 25 point night to sort of bail me out. So I kind of thought I was wasting a goalie, based on, everything that happened and just seeing all the goals and everything happen. So I did not have a good night last night in that regard. I think I was, maybe we were equally tilted, but I will say that it's very easy to see the negatives, and it's not quite as easy to embrace the positives. And, in your position, hitting 5 bets, right? You were probably laying significant juice if you didn't make money or whatever off of hitting a 5 of 7 round robins. But there's a lot of positives. And honestly, at the end of the day, hockey's such a fun sport that I really honestly don't know that I've had a bad day, just watching hockey and tilting my face off. At the end of the day, I'm still watching a really cool sport and watching people do cool things, which is the exact opposite of how I feel about football, where it's oh, wow, that was a cool thing. And oh, there's 10 other dudes who, crumpled their knees or got, concussions. And, it's just a brutal sport to watch. So at the end of the day, I think just appreciate the sport, and that helps you get past most of it. But you can see my face here on the StreamYard. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll do the wave again. It's a tough thing for me to say because last night was certainly one of my more frustrating nights. But let's get into Thursday because okay, go ahead.
I was going to think you'll never see me saying a negative thing about the NFL, and then I was going to transfer us right into the slate. That was my plan. But you know what? You cut me off. You started the process. Why don't I read out the games and you pull up the ad read of sorts? Does that sound good?
Can do.
13 games. I say 12. All right, 13 games. So we have Anaheim. My God. Ottawa at Buffalo. LA at Florida. Edmonton at Detroit. San Jose at Montreal on a home back-to-back. Toronto at the Vancouver at Pittsburgh. New Jersey at Tampa. Seattle at Washington. The New York Rangers at the St. Louis Blues. Chicago at Winnipeg. Calgary at Arizona. And Boston at Vegas on a back-to-back. I honestly think is it both home? Are they home tonight, Vegas, while we're recording? No, they're on the road. So it's road to home back-to-back. So 2 back-to-backs. Everyone else will be fresh off of a night off. I will now mute myself, and we can talk about where we're going to be placing our bets, and we're going to be playing
Yeah. So I'm pulling up I'm trying to do a screen share while you read through the games for our YouTube fam. But of course, it goes very poorly. But I think before we talk over the slate, let's get to the ad read. As always, as the past 12 episodes have been, this episode is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Now this is a DraftKings daily fantasy show, of course, but we've been inclined to place a bet or two over on the DraftKings Sportsbook. So we know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with code THPN, the Hockey Podcast Network, THPN. New customers bet just $5 on NHL and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-878-97777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill and Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. All right, so as I was sharing, we have a loaded 13-game slate on the docket here. Now, it's not very fun to see that some of the top teams include Seattle, Edmonton, sure, Buffalo, Carolina, in the top 4 of the expected goals index, based on my rainbow colors, whatever, which basically just take the last 10 games for each team, apply some adjustments based on opponents, and basically output how each team is playing over the last 10 coming into things, not accounting for things like injuries and other news items that could potentially impact a team's projection for the day. It's not a projection, it's an index, very, very slight difference, of course, but in any case, you should expect to see ownership come in on the Edmonton Oilers, of course. I think Toronto, even though they're on the road against the Islanders, I think they might get some ownership. Montreal's home to the Sharks, but they're on a road back-to-back. Well, actually, they're on a back-to-back with travel as they are in Philly. Actually, is that game in Philly? I should know this because it's right down the street for me. Yes, it is in Philly. Okay. So I would not expect too much ownership on Montreal just because the odds won't necessarily be in their favor. But, all that to say, there's Winnipeg against Chicago. I mean, we've seen Winnipeg in these plum spots not do much of anything for 3 weeks now. So, is this really going to be another spot where we run to the table in a 13-game slate with 20% Winnipeg won and get burned? I'm not sure. So right away, this slate strikes me as wide open. So that we're not going on forever through these 13 games. Why don't we just get right into the first one? Got anything else to add here?
Nope, let's get right into it. Where there's a lot of news, a good amount of news here. There's 2 players. One of them we know will not be playing in Trevor Zegras, and one that we're expecting to be out in Marty Nachos. Both of them are 4,300. Both of them were presumably going to be in the top 6, and things will be a little bit different tomorrow. And definitely we want to keep an eye on practice. Now, neither of these were guys that I was, especially Zegras, looking at as locks or guys I was really too interested in playing going into the slate. But it could make something a little bit more interesting as we attack this game. So let's start with the Anaheim side of things. Like I said, Zegras 100% not going to play. It doesn't sound entirely great. I don't know if you saw the play, lower body. His foot got kind of like caught in the boards and we went down. Not the best. They, won 5-3. That game it was not as close as that score makes it sound. They were up 5-0, and Nashville found a way to get 3 in the mix. The guy who moved up to the top power play, if you're asking, was Carrick. So there is maybe a guy that's cheap, but he only had 13 minutes. Toronto, Henrique, Terry, and Killorn had the most of the 5-on-5 work. But then again, Vetrano's still not in the top power play, nor was Henrique. So you can kind of see a couple different ways of attacking it, but it just feels very clunky to me. And I don't think anyone's going to be playing Anaheim anyways. But all of this to say that, I don't know, they decided top power play, let's put Carrick up there. He's just 2,600, but not the only 2,600 player on this slate. So, yeah.
In a different matchup, I would almost argue that the other power play is the Anaheim first unit, especially without Zegras. So I it's obviously out of play. 7K Vetrano against Carolina. It's not happening on a 13 gamer. So I'm inclined to move on, but I don't think this is necessarily as cut and dry as like, oh, well, that's the first unit and, this second unit's the second unit. Like it does kind of seem like this might just be Cam Fowler's like team for the next go of it. I mean, Minchikov only played 13 minutes. Now they were leading the entire game. But this is not the role that I expected to see coming into it. With the departure of Jamie Drysdale. It was Fowler, Vakanainen, Gudas, Lyubushkin in that order for time on ice. So not necessarily the most fun for like fantasy purposes. However, we're not here to talk about Anaheim. On the Carolina end of things, yes, you mentioned Marty Nachos day-to-day. So like I'm expecting him to at least have a chance to play, meaning yeah, we could get him ruled out in morning skate, but if they don't have a morning skate, it does kind of feel like it's one of those things where we're going to be at 6:30, so I'm kind of waiting for that news. I'm not sure if that really changes much because like Aho and Svechnikov like just don't really seem to have moved price-wise in quite some time. Still sub 6K for Andrei Svechnikov, and the points have been there. You could argue the shot volume isn't quite as high as you would like to see. But ultimately he's still playing in the premier spot in a pretty good matchup. And then Brent Burns is sub 5K, which, it's really, really gross, especially if they're playing Tony DeAngelo. But, it's unlikely that DeAngelo impacts anything. It's just when he plays, it's possible he takes over the top power play if they're struggling, which I don't love the idea of on a 13-game slate. So I think it's just those 3 guys that we're strongly considering here. But are you interested in a guy like Seth Jarvis, or are you just not interested in like these top 3 main players for Carolina?
I mean, last game they did Teravainen, Aho, Svechnikov. That kills Jarvis for me. I'm just not going to do it. Yeah. Fast should be back. Like I'm expecting what we saw last time in their 2-1 loss against St. Louis to change. And after practice, which Nachos did not practice, Brendan Moore said it's an upper body injury. It isn't too serious, but it may keep him out of the lineup tomorrow. So I really don't know if Jarvis, Svechnikov, Aho, maybe. If not, and it's the same power play, which again I kind of expect, and like you said, maybe with that one iteration of D'Angelo mixing in, then maybe I'll give it a second look at that first unit with Aho, Sveshnikov, and Jarvis. It's just not that expensive, all considered. It's not my favorite spot in the slate, though. I like some other spots more.
If Necas misses, it's been a low-key interesting development that Carolina just hasn't had a fourth line that they're trusting at the moment. Like last game, this Ponomarev, I honestly have not watched a Carolina game since he's been in the lineup, so I don't even know like the sort of player he is, but he's centering Nason and Brendan Lemieux, and they just got no minutes. And that kind of seems valid if Nate Chess misses here again, that like a guy, basically any of these dudes could actually touch, 18 minutes at least. Jarvis played 21 minutes last game. He kills penalties and is a, power play one guy. So these prices are all fair. I'm a little bit worried about ownership, of course, but if I had to one-off a guy, I would be considering Seth Jarvis because based on his rates, he's not looking that different from Andrei Svechnikov. He has a similar role. Now he doesn't get Spash and Aho, but it's not like we think Martinuk or Stahl are going to steal offense from him. So I think he can make plays. I think he's fine. But I'm unlikely to click in Brent Burns at what I suspect will be pretty high ownership personally. So let's go over to Ottawa and Buffalo. DJ, any final thoughts on Anaheim or Carolina?
No, I'm good. Ottawa Buffalo it is. This game, it's interesting. There's definitely reasons that you're going to want to click over on the DraftKings, slate. We're expecting, unless there's an absolute miracle, that Jeff Skinner is not going to play. He's out indefinitely and he's being evaluated. I don't think there's any chance he plays, although he's not been confirmed out yet. Ottawa just came off of a game which they were up, they were leading. They go into the third period and they just absolutely crap their pants. They lose 6-3. Now they stroll into Buffalo. Buffalo gave up 5 on an expected 2. Classic Sabres output. They played fine defensively, and Devin Levi crapped his pants. So this game, I believe, is one of the higher totals. I was actually just pulling that up as we were shifting over. It is a 7, which is not the highest total, but yeah, it is second on the slate. There is some value to be had. There is some very, like I kind of mentioned, there's a decent condensation of minutes. I gotta assume lines could change again in Ottawa, like nothing's working. So keep an eye on all that. But both sides seem interesting here in a 7 total. So do you have a preference? I know as we talked about right off the start, like Buffalo does kind of stand out in the matchup perspective. So why don't we start with the Sabres at home in a spot where Victor Olofsson's 2,600 potentially on line 1, at least that's projected as of now.
Yeah. That's really stupid. I don't understand why it's doing the things that I don't want it to do. Okay. So
I could tell you why, but afterwards I'll explain.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So what I'm trying to pull up here is basically when we look at the slate, Buffalo, again, I read out they had a pretty good matchup. They've been pretty good offensively. Ottawa's obviously been terrible defensively, and the scoring and goaltending has also cooperated and resulted in pretty good affairs both ways. And on the Ottawa front, the expected goals net out to about even. But when you combine the two, look at expected goals pace, for instance, you get easily the highest expected goal pace game of the night. And also when you do just shot attempts, raw Corsi, this game does stand out above the rest as well from that perspective. So even if you're not considering stacks in this game, I do think it's viable to consider one-offs in this game. That is certainly a viable option to, pick off a Dahlin or, let's consider Victor Olofsson one-off night. That's the big news here with Skinner going down. It does seem like we're getting a good roll here from Victor Olofsson. He is priced all the way down at 2,600. So I don't know. This is the classic spot of just a good offensive player getting put in an offensively oriented role. it's obviously unlikely that he's on the ice to close out a game if it's 3-1 Buffalo. Like he's just not going to be shooting for the empty net or whatever. But he's going to get at least power play 2 time, if not power play 1 time. I'm not sure if we have that confirmed. And he's going to get 2 good line mates to play with. So I'm all in on Victor Olofsson. I love playing him when he gets these opportunities to fill in for injuries, because if he assumes this role for 2 weeks, he will be a $4,000 or $5,000 player. Like that's just how Victor Olofsson operates. So it's really cut and dry for me. I don't have much interest in, say, like Buffalo 2, the Cousins, Paterka, Quinn. I shouldn't say I don't have interest, but their minutes have bounced around enough to where I'm not interested in chasing it on this large of a slate. Like playing 11 minutes a couple games ago, like I don't know. I just can't commit to it. I thought they were more protected minutes wise than they have been. So yeah, but that's about where I'm at on this spot. So DJ, thoughts on Olofsson? Anything to add there, or any thoughts on Ottawa?
Yeah, I mean, I made a little bit of a joke in the Discord, which I got roasted for, about the ownership on Rem Pitlick and blah blah blah. I was just kind of messing around. I mean, it's a good play. I get it. I want to see power play 1 before I make any strong takes here, but I really just think it's going to be Jack Quinn. I don't understand how or why it wouldn't be. And if it is Jack Quinn, I think I'm going to consider him as a one-off. And I know it's like 1,300 more, but I think I'll find that myself and just kind of potentially go back to the Buffalo 2 well here when everyone's going the other way. It's been really good as a line. As of right now, it's all power play correlated, but if it is broken up, as I suspect, I might just go with like a Quinn Dahlin type of thing. But on the other side of things, Ottawa, we don't know what the lines will be yet. It was Norris, the Chuck, and Joseph. They got throttled as a line. They got actually crushed by Calgary. Stützle, Giroux, Batherson they didn't score. So that top 6 didn't have any of the 3 goals for Ottawa at 5-on-5. They did score on the power play, which is really why you're stacking. On that top power play was Giroux over what we normally would have seen. So it was not Stützle. So I don't know what happened there and why that happened, but they scored and they seemingly ran that as a unit with, again, Giroux in the place of Stützle. Very strange. It's a mess there. The prices are coming down to a point where you just have to consider it. I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Like, I don't have any strong. I have nothing that indicates to me like this is the line to go with. These are the players. It's not a great matchup either. Like, I'm a Sabres homer. Call me whatever you want. Like, if the goaltending is fine in Buffalo, it's really not that bad. Like, they're probably a better team than Ottawa. So I think I'm fading it. But man, I want to buy in on Ottawa at some point as the prices continue to dip.
Yeah. The reason I'm not in on, or the reason I'm not all in on Norris, Tkachuk, Joseph is that Joseph is 4,200, but Joseph is the sort of play driver who actually has historically played well with Norris and Tkachuk. You look back, I think it's 2 years ago now. So we're kind of getting into dicey territory. But when Joseph came over from Tampa, was that last year? I don't know. In any case, Norris, Tkachuk, Joseph was like a stellar line. Then obviously the start of the year, Norris got hurt. But last game they dominated Calgary. It wasn't just they were great. They were very fun as well. Like up tempo, getting the majority of the chances. So I always like to see that from a line. When you're noticing that Norris is priced 5,200 against Buffalo that can't buy a save. I mean, Josh Norris is a guy who picks corners, like it's his job. I think this is a fun sort of sack. I would include Matthew Joseph if I'm playing Tkachuk and Norris, however. And it's not because Joseph is a great play, but because I think the reason that you want them is because it's not just through the power play. They also get some 5-on-5 help. It's a 13-game slate. I feel like the correlation matters more than the pure value of, like Joseph is overpriced for what he is. Okay, next point. I think that's what I'll do. I don't think I'll wind up on Shabbat, Chikrin, or Sanderson. Just the minutes haven't really condensed one way or the other to this point, and I don't really like Thomas Shabbat personally. So, yeah, I'm considering Ottawa 1. Everything else, I'm just kind of avoiding. I'm not even gonna give light to this Tim Stützle situation, but it is quite funny what is going on in Ottawa, LA, Florida. On the Florida side of things, we still have Barkov, Reinhardt, but Matthew Tkachuk stole the show in his. Is he a hometown St. Louis guy, or was it just Tkachuk? Played in St. Louis, and so he grew up there for somewhat. Do you know?
Yeah. I mean, they said this is what he in his hometown. They were saying that after he scored the hat trick and stuff. So
okay, so
why not?
We missed the narrative. That's our bad. But turns out
bet on them. I mean, I bet on them. I just didn't play them.
Well, fair enough. I
made a couple of schmeckles, but yeah.
Yeah, I got my Barkov minus 200 on the point, whatever. Easy game. Pays the same as betting the over on Tkachuk, or I guess Tkachuk was better odds, but you know what I mean. So 53 DraftKings points from Matthew Tkachuk is really hard to overcome. He was obviously a slate winner. He's had a very strong stretch of games coming into this one. In a matchup against LA, I'm not overly interested. However, you will note that LA's numbers defensively don't look quite as good as you might expect. They've lost some games coming in. They actually blew a game against Tampa too, in rather dreadful fashion. Like, they had that game on lockdown and gave up 2 quick goals in the third, lost it in overtime for their 6th consecutive loss. So if I'm going one way in this game, it would be through Florida. I think I'm again going Reinhardt, Barkov. But Chuck is making a play at it. That's for damn sure. 9 shots last game. That's the sort of player that we saw, last year in previous seasons. It's just a matter of, can he keep this up consistently to make a 7K price tag in a difficult matchup worth it? So how do you feel about this Florida side?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we talk about point chasing and whatnot, but you're only really point chasing, and it's probably bad if you're chasing into a lot of ownership as well. And I really don't think it's going to come all in droves here. There's just a lot of good spots on the slate we haven't covered yet. The next game is the highest total on the slate. This game isn't really coming in at a massive total. And I do agree, though, LA has not been right. I watched some of that game. I was kind of watching for a while as Fiala, Danault, and Moore were back together, and just that was it. I mean, other than that, it didn't seem like they could use any offense. So I could look again to that line, if anything, because it is cheap, but not that cheap. It's really Trevor Moore 6K. So I do think if you're playing Florida, number one, as I said before, and I'll say again, you don't have to just stick to a traditional line script with them. Their power play is very lethal, and if they do end up getting down in games, they will just put out, Barkov, Reinhardt, the Chuck, and Verhaeghe as much as possible. But, the Chuck, Verhaeghe, they're great plays. Are you throwing in Brandon Montour with it? Well, in that 5-goal effort, he had a resounding 1.5 fantasy points. So, I don't know. He's broken. And I'm broken. Everyone's broken. Are you considering anyone else as a defensive player to play in a Florida stack at this point? Or is it just these guys are just, none of them are doing it?
Yeah, the only guy I'm remotely considering is Ekman Larson, as his price continues to fall, 3,200. It's a fine price. He's not playing a ton of minutes, but Forsling is fine at 3,800. But it's just, I think the $600 matters, and so and honestly, the $600 from Ekman Larson down to just a pure punt, that also matters, which makes Ekman Larson interest rather slight. But if I'm already betting on Florida, I have no interest, or I have no problem with taking a stab at, an Ekman Larson or something, because he hasn't been moving the puck well. He's picking up points on pace for a 40-point season, which, for a guy who's no longer on the top power play, not that bad. Meanwhile, Brandon Montour's on pace for like a 20-point season. Now, he missed some time due to injury, but it is what it is. So yeah, I'm not playing Montour. Just I need to see it for a few games before we get that horse back going. I did want to quickly touch on the fact that LA, speaking of broken people, Pierre-Luc Dubois was not fixed. I declared him fixed when I think it was a week ago, and I clearly jinxed it. He got demoted to the fourth line late last game. So we'll see if that role sticks. Interestingly, he was on the ice in overtime, so maybe this is just like they're kind of pot committed to him. He was on the ice for the OT goal in overtime, so they're obviously financially invested in him. So I don't think they're giving up on him. But just keep an eye on where he lines up, because if he's on the fourth line, that would create some value in the top 9. And I imagine that would benefit somebody like, Byfield or whoever, to actually step in and play more minutes in overtime, for instance, if it got to that point. So not a ton of stacking interest in LA, however. So let's go to Edmonton taking on Detroit. Edmonton, nothing new here to cover. We know McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins are going to be ungodly expensive. They're probably going to be very good. It's just a matter of, can you make the stack work with some cheap shit? And we know that Draisaitl, Warren Fogle, I was looking for him above 4,000. He's 3,800 after being 4K last slate and being 20% owned. He went down 200, so thanks for that, DraftKings. And Ryan McLeod, 2,900, are a much more affordable alternative. Now, they are producing similar rates at 5-on-5 as the top line. They're very good, but they don't get that sweet power play correlation, which does impact things pretty dramatically in my view. So if you told me ownership's the exact same, I'm finding a way to make the money work on Edmonton 1. And the last few slates, ownership has been the same for Edmonton 1 and Edmonton 2. So I'm on team Edmonton 1 here. It's pretty obvious. I'll go right back to the Hyman Painwell. And we'll see how it goes. But where are you at on this game here?
Yeah, no, I'm in on Edmonton 1. I played the Draisaitl McLeod Fogle thing. It almost paid off. I think if you had enough of the right stuff around it, it could have. I did not. As I said, I played Vancouver 1. And if this, again, it feels like this would be an entirely different conversation if we're talking about a Hyman hat trick. I know it's an alternate reality that, the first one gets denied, the second one gets denied. He missed 2 wide open empty nets or whatever. But
yep.
I'm definitely thinking since a couple of those goals, the play didn't count at all. It's not like, he gets, I only think they don't get a shot on goal for that, right? The play is just nothing. It's offsides. It's goalie interference. So there is no one really at this point in time on Edmonton that is producing as much as McDavid and Hyman. They are the guys that are getting all the expected goals. Hyman is shooting enough with how much he's getting on net to make him very valuable. I do think both of these guys together, you're talking about a 4-point type of night every single night. And I just don't think they'll come at the clip that it should. This matchup's not Chicago, but it's really good still. So I'm going to go to Edmonton 1, where I think the slate could be broken. And I could throw Nugent Hopkins in. I could throw Bouchard in. I live right now leaning with Nugent Hopkins myself, just doing the full line moving on.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, so on the Detroit end of things, nothing new here. Patrick Kane is the same, almost, he's 100 less than Alex DeBrincat now, so there's really no inefficiency. I was pointing out that Patrick Kane has looked very similar to DeBrincat, and guess what? Now they're priced very similarly, very similar production, and just too expensive. Edmonton is a wagon. They obviously played a close game to Chicago, but they still held Chicago to like 20 shots. Hey, don't look up how many shots Edmonton had though. That's not important for this measure. But Edmonton is very good defensively, so I'm just not playing any Detroit pieces. Keep an eye on the status of Jake Wallman. If he's out, maybe someone like Gostisbehere plays more minutes. But you're not missing out on a ton if like Gostisbehere kind of needs points to get there from a DFS standpoint. So. Honestly, Wallman missing would improve the Edmonton matchup even more. So there you go. There's something to watch for tangibly.
Yeah.
San Jose, Montreal. We are still on Logan. We're still on Logan Couture watch here. So that's really the main thing I'll be looking out for. Taking on a Montreal team that's on a back-to-back year. Anything stand out to you in this game? I mean, San Jose just got killed by Toronto, so like it's really hard for me to look at this and say, "Oh, well, bounce back spot," unless some like Couture enters the lineup.
Yeah, I would be. I'm fine with playing Montreal because it feels really cheap, all considered. One thing about this slate is if you go to defense, there are not like there's no defenseman priced above Quinn Hughes at 7,300. And I do think a lot of people are going to take this opportunity to punt defense. And if you are stacking Montreal, I could be very easily convinced to go with Mike Matheson in that stack. Again, I think it's a kind of a bit of a leverage play, even though this is not a leverage spot in theory. Like you're playing Caulfield, Slafkovsky, and Suzuki. Like I could see a scenario very easily where if, Caulfield's who you needed, for example, Matheson could be incredibly involved in that sequence. It's 6,200. And again, I think it's just getting like unique with something that is probably going to be chalky, just price considered. Like 6,100 Cole Caulfield is shooting a ton right now. He had been scoring almost every game for a little while. He's been hot again, and then it kind of cooled off playing, the Rangers and having 6 shots on goal, didn't score, whatever, right? But I love it other than the back-to-back nature of it. It's a little bit tough to stomach. But I don't care. Like I'm in on it. Like Caulfield, Suzuki, Matheson. You probably want to throw Slafkovsky in the mix, but I don't think you absolutely have to. It's just probably you're going to need a savings in there to afford another stack, and he just helps you out. So that 4-man's totally justifiable on this slate.
Okay. I just checked San Jose. They've ruled out Logan Couture. They're hopeful he plays on Saturday. Otherwise, Ty Emberson is at week to week. He was eating up a ton of minutes for this team. I can't say in good conscience that Kalen Addison is a better play as a result of that news, but we would hope he keeps the power play one. Henry Thrun got a goal with that group, so maybe you take a shot on him at 2,800 instead. He played 20 minutes. He got the blocks bonus. He also had a goal with the power play one. Or you could play.
Well, he didn't even play the point. I mean, did you watch that or no? So I was watching. They basically like you can kind of see it on Hockey Viz. Like Zutterland, Edison came off. Thrun and Ferraro both came on, and Thrun went to the slot. He wasn't really net front, but he tipped it in. Like it was weird. Like he did not go to the point unless if for some reason he shifted in there for some reason, but it was a tip.
Okay.
It was very weird.
That's
he didn't start
useful
on that
context,
play, but I don't know why Zutterland came off quick and he tipped it in.
Yeah, if you're saying it was a line change, then I actually feel more confident that Kalen Addison is like going to be power play one still. So we'll see. But in any case, the other thing, the only other thing I was going to say is that with the Emberson injury, Mark-Edward Vlasic draws in, and he doesn't play many minutes when he does play. So if you really want to give Addison, I think you can project him to play 18, 19 minutes with power play time. Just because Vlasic's, those Emberson minutes will get spread around. Addison's already getting 18 minutes, so it's not crazy to anticipate that. All right, Toronto Islanders. No news is good news, I guess, here. There's really I guess Matthew Nyes got hurt in practice, but they already said that he's fine. So I'm expecting him to play Thursday. We'll see how he heals overnight. But there's there's no news. I mean, everyone's really expensive in this game, and I am not interested in chasing Mitch Marner points. I honestly feel like that Marner explosion makes Matthews more owned in this spot. So yeah, I'm generally out on this game, I believe. What are your thoughts here?
Matthew Nyes was ruled out. I was almost positive.
No, he has.
You said he wasn't?
They.
What? I thought they said he would not play tomorrow after practice. Like the coach said, like they're gonna evaluate, but he won't play tomorrow. Okay, you can look at that for a second, or I can look at it. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem going back to the well here in Toronto. I mean, they didn't exactly we started off by talking. It's very disheartening to have invested all of the cap into Austin Matthews and only getting 13 points on a Mitchell Marner explosion is incredibly frustrating. Mitchell Marner went for 36 and Matthews went for 13, which is just not what anyone expected, especially because how popular Matthews was. And you could afford Matthews and McDavid to make it work with the punts on the slate, and people did that. I believe you included. I could see a scenario where you could go right back to the well, play the Marner's Matthews, play, I honestly think like you could just one-off Nylander as well. Look at Tavares if you'd like, but man, Nylander's just so involved. Morgan Riley, I'd say he broke the slate, but again, just because Matthews was so disappointing at his price, he didn't entirely, but he had 26.8 and he was absolutely firing. I mean, he had a good number of attempts, 6 on net, goal and assist. He's 6,400, but like I said, there's not a lot to spend up for on this defensive slate. Like there's a lot of guys in that range, and he's very much a part of it, and for good reason. So yeah, this Toronto side I'm in on. I could go a number of different ways. It's going to be anywhere nearly as popular. The Islanders not been great defensively. They've not been great in goal, and I'm willing to take advantage of them here if possible. So I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, I mean, the Islanders got murdered by a back-to-back Vancouver team in one of the worst schedule spots of the season. 5 games in 8 days, road trip, 3 and 4 back-to-back. You name it. The Canucks were facing it. The Islanders get back Adam Pelech and absolutely lay an egg defensively still. So all of this to say, like, take it with a huge grain of salt because it just might not matter. But this Islanders team with Adam Pelech in it, I just respect a whole lot more defensively than I do without Adam Pelech. That also sort of takes away some of the value defensively from a guy like Noah Dobson, who you can, before this, you could almost pencil him in any situation. I just see the Pelech pairing getting more ice time than the Romanov Dobson pairing in defensive shutdown minutes. So yeah, I'm a little bit leery to target a ton of Toronto based on that. And Toronto's done nothing defensively that really has me all that worried about, like, oh, well, can I get buried by the Islanders? Like, I don't think so. I don't think the Islanders are doing anything at their prices that make me regret fading them. So pricing considered, I'm out on this game. But yeah, of course, Austin Matthews is a one-off. It's always in play. So let's head to
you were right.
Vancouver.
Matthews is not ruled out. I think I literally looked at the tweet and I just assumed it said he was ruled out, and it says he was not ruled out with a big old NOT that I can't read. You were right. I was wrong. We move on to Vancouver and Pittsburgh.
Hang the banner. So on the Vancouver side, they continue to roll. Yeah. JT Miller, Pettersson, Besser. I mean, their pricing didn't move. They didn't have the explosion that they had against the Rangers, but all the same, just a dominant performance by them and by the team. The matchup profiles, fine, I guess. Pittsburgh has been trending a bit more positively defensively as of late, but this is still a really tough road trip for Vancouver. I would love to say they can't keep doing this, but clearly they keep doing it, and it's been all season. So do the thing, and Vancouver side, it's pay up or really don't play anyone at all. Like, just don't come to the table with Andrei Kuzmenko and wonder why he got 1.5 fantasy points. It's just never happening. But anything here of interest to you?
I mean, I do like games that are 6.5 totals that are supposed to be competitive. It's a -125 for Pittsburgh. It just kind of, again, this game has what I would assume would be a lot of volume potential. So part of me thinks, am I maybe just going to end up on Demko? Maybe I end up just playing Demko. Could I also see myself saying a lot of people are probably going to end up on Demko? He's cheap. It's a good matchup. Pittsburgh throws a lot of low-calorie shots. Maybe I could go to Pittsburgh one. Like Vancouver on a long road trip, I don't think this matchup is incredibly bad for Pittsburgh. Like part of me walks through that process and thinks Pittsburgh's going to come in super low comparatively to what we're expecting. And they've been really good. Like Raquel, Gensel, and Crosby are really good. Raquel isn't as cheap as he was. We knew that well was going to break. He's up to 5K. Again, are people going to play him? I don't think so. Like I'm considering Pittsburgh as a leverage play, and I don't think it's a bad play. Like there's a difference between leverage that's good and bad. I talked about this before. I think this actually could be good leverage. So I am putting Pittsburgh in my consideration set for sure on this slate. And I'm not opposed to Vancouver one, but it's Vancouver one or nothing, like you said.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to the DraftKings team for pricing Rickard Rakell at $5,000. Can't believe it took this long to get here, but here we are. He's still been productive to make that price tag look pretty attractive. It's not quite as must play, particularly on such a large slate. Like one-offs are just like, obviously there's a lot more options. But it at least makes you pause now that he's 5K. Drew O'Connor up on the second line instead of Riley Smith. He wound up assisting a Malkin goal, or maybe it was the Carlson goal or Riedel. I don't know. But they were up there. He was productive and kind of kills the Riley Smith value. But yeah, I don't know. Like I guess with the backdrop of the fact that Edmonton plus punts seem a lot more fun, I just don't know that I'll get to Pittsburgh 1, which means that Jake Gensel is going to have the Kachuk night, I'm sure, and put up 53.
Yeah. It does feel, again, it's not like it's the greatest play in the world or anything, but Pittsburgh got a few days rest versus Vancouver on a long road trip with low ownership on a side that isn't terrible. It's not perfect, but I do think that there's like if you just said like what's the projection to the ownership, I think Pittsburgh is going to come in at sort of like a good spot in that capacity. But we can just keep this moving. It's probably one or the other. Maybe Malkin if you're a sociopath.
Here's something weird. The last 10 games, Erik Karlsson has gotten 25% of his shots on goal, which screams out for positive regression in the future. He's had 6.5 shot attempts and gotten a quarter of them on goal. You would expect Erik Karlsson to get about half his shots on net, given his talent level, maybe even a bit closer to a forward, 60%. So there's some regression baked in on his game logs alone. I'm looking to see if there's any comparable D-men over this past stretch that but maybe if you want to bet on Pittsburgh but don't want to go all the way in, you just say 5K Erik Karlsson, just book it. I don't know. It just seems a bit weird that he's priced this low. But then you check the game logs and it's like, well, what's happened to his rates? And honestly, his rates seem fine. It's just that none of those pucks are getting on goal. So, yeah, just a little something there to consider. New Jersey, Tampa.
Sure.
New Jersey likely will be without Jack Hughes. It looks like Dawson Mercer will actually be the Jack Hughes replacement this time. I don't know what happened that last game. He only got 16 minutes of ice time. I was expecting a lot larger of a role from him, but it just did not come to fruition. But he was practicing with the top power play in practice. So, hopefully he gets a better role, I guess. I don't really know what else to say, though. This doesn't seem like a spot where, New Jersey will be all that popular. So, any interest in the Jack Hughes-less Devils?
Not especially. I mean, it is. This is one again. I just kind of been talking about the totals a bit. This is actually a higher total than Vancouver Pittsburgh, higher total than Toronto and the Islanders. It's like they got this at 6.5 minus 120. I just don't really see it that way myself. Tampa probably goes, unless if they change something like Stamkos, Point, and Kucherov all stick together. That probably won't be very popular either with how popular Edmonton should be and likely will be. We haven't even talked about the team playing against Chicago yet. It's kind of hard to fit in Tampa with too much. I lean that way myself. Dawson Mercer on the top power play. It's of note. It's interesting. He's 4,200. Not really feeling like he's a one-off piece, and that's just not the way I think you play him. But who do you play him with? Like the pricing on guys like the Foley and Bratt, they're somewhat interesting, but I don't really love this matchup, especially as Tampa gets healthier. So I think I'm going to stay away from this game. I kind of think that total is a little bit one that I might look back at tomorrow and say, I should just took it under now because I think it should drop.
Yeah. So the reason that I'm taking another shot at Dawson Mercer, despite expecting him to play 22 minutes last game and him getting like 16, is that one, the prior 4 games he touched 19 to 20, but that their bottom 6 in practice today was Bowers, Lazar, Batchton, and Tierney centering Willman and Holtz. And like neither of those lines should get many minutes at all. Like I don't really know how else to say it. So Heischer and Mercer feel like the top 2 centers, and then McLeod, I guess, is in the mix somewhere. I don't even know. Maybe there's like maintenance in there or something, or someone shifted to wing. But it just seems like whoever's in the top 6 is going to get piled on as far as minutes go. So like, yeah, I mean, that's why I'm, keeping an eye on Mercer and his line mates, because this entire team feels a bit too cheap for filling the void of Jack Hughes. Now, maybe you just can't, and he's irreplaceable, but it's at least interesting to me.
I mean, if it's a Bratt show, and I just don't think he can do it. If it's Bratt and Heischer, I don't know. Heischer seems cheap too. Team just doesn't really, I don't know. Without Jack Hughes, it's just not that exciting. But I think I might revisit this again, take another look. It is. I can't land at anything right now, and because I really don't even know what this team is going to look like exactly as we're saying. So yeah, why don't we just skip it? Any interest in Tampa 1?
The answer is not no, but I don't think that they're going to use Tampa 1 against the depth of New Jersey. Like I think they're just going to go strength on strength, and I'm not that eager to pick on the McLeod, Heischer, Mercer type guys. Like they're really, like, I just still think they're really good players, and the Devils aren't a bad team without Hughes. They're certainly not a great team, but like I just don't really see a need to pay these prices for Tampa 1. They're all correlated. They're all together, which means there's no value to be found. It's just they need to score 4 goals, and maybe Kucherov does it. Maybe he doesn't. I feel better about spending that salary elsewhere personally. So Victor Hedman.
You know what? I'm gonna put. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm going to put 25 on the under, right? On 25 on the under right now, plus money. Under 6.5. You know what? Bold takes. Confirm. $25 bets in, baby.
Perfect. Victor Hedman continues to play 27, 28, 29 minutes. So that's a fine one-off play. He's now below 6K. So a nice little round number for you. I like playing dudes who have really good profiles the second they dip under that 6K mark. It's just a little bit of catnip for me. Seattle, Washington, no real need to restate the Seattle stuff. They're still rolling. They rolled in the Buffalo, picked up a 5-2 win. Yanni Gord continues to produce. Gord, Tolvanen, Bjorkstrand is how I would stack these guys. And like I said off the top, like this is a really good matchup for them. Washington is leaky defensively. They seem very banged up. Both Ovi and Wilson are like, they're true game time decisions. So even if they do play, they'll be somewhat sapped. TJ Oshie's out, and they don't really have much to begin with. Rasmus Sandin is also day to day, so like just a lot to like, I think, for Seattle, and not a lot of salary to play. DJ, thoughts here?
I mean, I think I'm going to end up off this game entirely, but I do agree if I was touching anything here, it's that Seattle line, which I consider to be their most prolific at 5-on-5, and all of them, I think, right? Well, actually, I didn't double check that, but at least Bjorkstrand and Tolvanen are integral on power plays as well. So it's easy for me, but it's, I believe, right up there with the lowest total on the slate, which it's not exactly. It's a little bit. No, it's the lowest total technically, but it's basically tied with like Chicago, Winnipeg. But that's kind of a different scenario.
Yeah. Welcome back to Jaden Schwartz. He took the power play spot of Yanni Gord or Ty Cartier or Tatar or whoever you want to say was on the power play before. But Schwartz played with Wenberg, Tanev, and then Tatar, Beniers, Eberle remained intact, with the fourth line being Burakovsky, Cartier, McCann. So 4 good lines here. You're definitely playing roulette if you're stacking any of them. All right. Rangers, St. Louis. Can't believe there's still 3 more games to go after this. Gotta say, St. Louis, not the best performance against Florida. Can't say I blame them. This Florida team is a wagon. The Rangers have not looked great at 5-on-5, and their power play has been, it's been good. But like, is Panarin going to score 10 goals on every 10-game stretch? I don't know. Just doesn't seem like a team I'm overly willing to pick on in St. Louis here. So I'm out on the Rangers, I believe.
Yeah, the only change to St. Louis was a stupid one. They moved up Parayko to their top power play in practice, so that's cool. They take Krugov for Parayko, and that's probably stupid. But I guess that all that to say, like, Parayko was a bad play, and now he's just slightly worse. I have no interest in playing the Blues. I really don't have much interest in playing the Rangers either. Just it's all through Panarin. It's priced pretty efficiently, if not getting to the point of he's almost 9K now, Panarin. I get it. He's well deserving of that price, but I think I'm just going to skip it. I don't think it's going to be popular, so maybe you come back to it, but I just prefer Nylander, and I prefer playing, the Hyman McDavid thing, and you're just not getting Panarin in that scenario. So, yeah, that probably does it for me on this game.
Yeah, a short-time friend of the show, Brennan Othman, sent down to the AHL, so really no real changes in how to think of these lines, so just, if Trouba was out for personal reasons, so he seems like he'll play. All right, and you covered the St. Louis stuff that I care about, which is to say I don't really care about any of it. So let's move on to Chicago and Winnipeg. Any interest in Jason Dickinson, DJ?
NHL All-Star Jason Dickinson, the best player in the league, well worthy of his 4,300 price tag. I am a miserable person. Don't get me started. There was every single Chicago player on the board. I was considering betting every single under. And then finally I was like, you know what? This Dickinson one is it's free. Like, this is so stupid. Like, he has way more points than he even should. And he scored in like the first minute of the game. Whatever. Chicago's absolutely brutal. I have absolutely no interest in them whatsoever. I will be betting unders probably as of now and into the future. There's just nothing. There's just nothing here. And on top of the fact that I have no interest in like trying to solve whatever they're going to be every single night, it truly seems like they're just changing things. You can pull up the picture of Darnell Nurse saying, "Have at it." Thank you for the YouTube fans in attendance. Like, the last slate, I kind of talked about, this is their first power play, and this first power play is probably where you want to go, which Dickinson wasn't on. And a lot of guys on that first unit just like didn't get run. Like, Pitlick, Kurashev, Reichel, Korchinski, and Gutman. Like, Gutman finishes with like 13 minutes, and they had a lot of power play run. Like, they gave Kurashev and Pitlick a ton of run, and Pitlick is atrocious as a hockey player. So I have just no faith in this team being anything but an absolute bottom dweller. And the fact that they haven't done it yet, they have been at least competitive and actually beat the Flames, I just hope the phone shooter bros are saying, okay, this Chicago team is feisty, and I'm not going to play against them because I'm planning on going right back to the Winnipeg one. And that might keep me away from Edmonton, which is probably my favorite play of the night. And if it does, I'm okay with that because there's other plays I like a lot here. And I think Edmonton is going to be chalky. Yeah. So I don't think Winnipeg's going to get overlooked. That's not to say that they're not getting ownership. They're going to get a good amount of ownership. But this Chicago team is not only bad, they seem directionless.
The problem is now without Bedard, they have no incentive to try and score. And so, like, they're just trying to not lose by as many goals as possible. They're trying to clutch and grab and, defense their way to a close loss. And they did that successfully against the Oilers. So, just don't play 3K Rem Pitlick. He projected really well last slate because of the line one power play one role. He was 19% owned. Now he's up $500, so he might not be as owned here. But just don't play him. You look at the last 3 seasons, he's the absolute worst player in the league as far as shots on goal, like per 60. He's the worst forward. He's played 124 games in his NHL career. Last night, with the 4 shot attempts he had, was the 3rd best game of his career. He's had more than 4 shot attempts twice. It's no good. Don't do it. It's not worth it. The projections don't know shit. Winnipeg, they're really good. Their projections will be really good. And yeah, I don't know. Winnipeg won. Josh Morrissey. It's really affordable. You can do it. Just note that there is the risk of, Chicago is literally just shutting the bus down. It's not like Bedard's here. We got to make him look good. He's going to try and do fun stuff. They're just not doing that. So, yeah, I'm very much considering Winnipeg. But, you're basically looking for the efficiency more than you are just, they're going to get 60 shots and everyone's going to get their bonuses. That's unlikely to happen against this Chicago team. Nate Schmidt, 2,800, continues to be productive. He's one of the top value punts of the night defensively. All right, Calgary, Arizona. Dylan Guenther's season is here. He has arrived. 5 shots, a power play assist, and an absolute laser of a goal. His 2nd goal in as many games. I think he's it. I think he's a really good NHL player. So, right now, 3,800, I'm happy to play Dylan Guenther in any matchup, any situation. So that's my main interest here. DJ, these Calgary guys are pretty inexpensive. Sharon Govich is a name that's come out of your mouth several times this season. Are you sort of looking at Calgary here?
Yeah, I am, but I don't think it's enough of a value to afford what I want to play. So I don't think I'm going to actually end up on it, but I think it's very justifiable. But the reason it's not enough of a value is because I don't know how I could possibly consider a peak a peak Flames game that doesn't revolve around Rasmus Anderson and Mackenzie Weegar, who are just incredibly expensive. So I find it not to be as cheap as maybe it meets the eye. I don't see, I think they're going to be involved in a big win. And you could say, well, they weren't last late. At least Rasmus Anderson only finished with 3 fantasy points in the DraftKings scoring system, and they did score a bunch of goals. So, there are scenarios, but that seems like an outlier to me. That both of these defensemen stayed under 10 fantasy points in a game they scored 6. That seems like a rarity where Noah Hannafin is the guy you needed. But that can happen once in a great while. I would go with the Lindholm, Sharon Govich, and Weegar was actually on the top power play because they're stupid and they hate me and they hate everyone. So I honestly have to say it's Weegar. And I'm not afraid to play Weegar. This guy is a blocks bonus machine. So if he hits, he could absolutely smash. And again, that's where I would go. But I really, as of right now, it's not one of my top sacks.
Yeah, and Weegar, Weegar 6,700. It's not like you're getting a discount on Rasmus Anderson, which is, what I immediately thought. That's exciting.
For sure. I wish it was more exciting. I really do.
Okay, so we did get Yeah, just one more thing. We did get new lines for Arizona last game, so just to quickly read those off. Kerfoot centered Michelli, Kraus, Keller, Schmaltz, McBain, and Bukestad, Gunther, Cooley. So like, if you want to stack Gunther, go ahead. I have no interest in playing Jack McBain. He's basically a PKer at this point, and yeah, there's really not a ton of interest in any other line for me outside of the Gunther guys. All right, the Cassidy Bowl, that's right. Vegas on a back-to-back here. We are expecting them to be as normal without William Karlsson. This means Stevenson, Stone are correlated on the power play. They'll play with, Dorofiev at 5-on-5, but back-to-back against Boston. Not interested. Boston, the only news here is that Brandon Carlo is likely to be out. Not sure his status, though. Which brings, some punts into play just to fill his minutes. So, any interest in Boston here?
Not entirely. I mean, no, I would say no, but obviously Pastrnak, it's obvious. Like David Pastrnak makes a ton of sense. He is going to be low owned on a slate that he is on, and that's always interesting to me. But I don't think I'm going to end up on this game. Vegas on a back-to-back. Yes, it feels already like a low scoring affair on paper. The sports books have this down at also a 6 over under with a slight lean on that over, but whatever. I think I'm going to end up off of it entirely, just spending on a cap. But again, I think that's going to be a pretty common thread. This game will get overlooked. So you can give it a look, but I'm not interested in this current iteration of Boston, and I don't think I'm playing Vegas on a back-to-back against the Bruins.
All right. We will get Jeremy Swayman in goal. Olmar pulled his groin, it looked like. Didn't look good. So, actually could be interesting. It's not really DFS relevant, but to actually see a run of games from Swayman, we just haven't really had to see that before. But that's really the only thing from last game that interests me to look at going forward. Let's close out the show with top stacks, guarantee goals, and get on out of here. So, DJ, do you have anything to start on the goals front?
Oh, we're doing goals first.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right. We do stacks first. I don't know why my brain.
Yeah. I think we were 2 for 4 last slate, and I didn't save it in my phone until I've not looked. I know Velarde scored. I'll take a peek. I can't remember. I bet it, but I know I didn't. All 4 didn't hit. But stacks, I'll go. I'm playing Winnipeg 1. It says Shifley's day to day. I don't recall seeing anything about that.
He got hit in the head with a shot, and he came back. Yeah. So I think he's fine.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he's fine. Oh, you're right. That is exactly what it is. Okay. Yeah, Winnipeg 1.
Okay. Let's do Kachuk, Norris, and Matthew Joseph. I meant to pull up their line stats from whenever it was 2 years ago, but I didn't. So just trust me. I'm a doctor. They were good together, and this is Buffalo we're talking about. So I trust it.
Yeah, the puck-knowing moods himself. I'll go Montreal 1. I'll do Caulfield, Suzuki, and Matheson, but I'm not sure if I'll have money for him or not. But like I said, I do think he's a good pivot. Like, what percentage is Caulfield going to be, and what percent is Matheson going to be, Matt? Just ballpark it for me right now.
Definitely Matheson will be very low. Caulfield maybe 7.
Yes.
Matheson like 3, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So he's 6 shot attempts per game. He's blocking a lot of shots. He's playing the power play 1, and they're playing against the San Jose Sharks. And again, he's just not going to get any ownership, which I think is incorrect. But you simulate the slate enough times, and he could be a terrible play a number of them, and he could win the slate a few. So I think I'm going to try to go that route myself.
Okay.
I'm playing Winnipeg and Montreal. I'm such a freaking fish, dude. Let's play against Chicago and San Jose. Wow, really sharp takes, DJ. You really broke the slate. Now the key is open. The locks are off. Yeah, wow. That's good stuff, DJ. You really figured it all out.
Right.
You talked everyone into the good plays.
I am feeling some New Jersey action here. I think Jesper Bratt has played well enough to that I'm not that concerned about the loss of Jack Hughes. I don't know who he plays with, unfortunately, but let's go with Dawson Mercer, Jesper Bratt, and Luke Hughes on defense. It's a rather inexpensive stack. I think Jesper Bratt's one of the best players in the league. He's actually shooting a bunch over the last stretch. It's not just that one game I talked about. They were just letting him shoot. Like, he's been taking his own shots, and now without Hughes, there's no one else to defer to, really. So I think he keeps it going. He's sub 7K for the first time in a while. So I'm in on Jesper Bratt.
Okay. I'm going to stick to what I said and not move on, but yeah, I'm a freaking loser. Do you have any guaranteed goals you're ready on, or do you want me to pick one and stall?
I mean, why don't you pick one?
I'll take Jake Gensel. Talked about him a good bit. I the price is probably going to be, I don't think it'll be quite minus money material, but probably, plus 115 or whatever. I don't even know his price off the top of my head in DraftKings, but yeah, he's been slightly unlucky with his shooting on the rise, and he's 7,700, so I'm gonna go high low on this one myself, and I'll take Jake Gensel. Make it easy, but yeah, he's been a bit unlucky as well.
I am going to take Seth Jarvis, 5K. This is obviously dependent on Natchez being out, but I think what I talked about with the fourth line not getting any minutes, even though Jarvis isn't on the top line, he's on the top power play, and I think he's the focal point of the line he's on. I think the matchup's a really good one against Anaheim, and Jarvis is a good player with really good rates over the last stretch. While everyone flocks to Svechnikov, you play Jarvis, save a little money, and get a guaranteed goal for your troubles.
Okay, I'm gonna just take Victor Olofsson. Let's just make it easy on myself. I know I was saying the chalk's gonna be all over him. He is gonna be the chalk. I'm gonna double check if Systema leads any sort of hints in our Discord that lead me to the Victor Olofsson wealth, and it's just a stone cold block he's scoring tomorrow. And I don't have to even think about it. As long as he remains on the top line, though, it truly is at his price and everything. It's probably gonna be a good bet tomorrow. So I'll give the good sound advice and not the GPP bro brain garbage that I'm thinking about. Just like playing Montreal and Winnipeg against Chicago and San Jose, just absolute genius stuff. I should really get a podcast.
All right. I'm going to go Elias Lindholm for my other guaranteed goal. I like the line. I like the spot. It's fine. I just want to be like MN Matt, who almost won the qualifier seat with a Kachuk and Calgary stack last night. So, just following in his footsteps, it's got to work, right? So I like the spot, and you run it back, of course, with Dylan Gunther the other way. All right, that'll do it for us. We are going to get out of here. DJ, any final thoughts before we head into our Thursdays?
I won't be around much tomorrow because I have a work thing. So just bear with me. I'll get out some stuff, and I will probably not have a ton down in DFS. I'll try to be checking at the work event, but follow me, DJ_Mitchell94, and follow Matt, and we'll have stuff out there. It'll be perfect.
Yeah, exactly. I just noticed this entire show on YouTube, our things weren't up, our ats or whatever, our Twitter thing. All right. In any case, we are going to close out this show. Thank you all for listening. Have it. They're up now. There you go. Congratulations. So from Doug, from DJ, from myself, have a good slate, everybody, and we will see ya.